Hello, James. How are you?
Hello, Rich. I'm very good. How are you doing?
Tired.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm a little bit the same myself. I decided to drag myself out of bed really early this morning for filming. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Uh,
These ideas always do seem like a good idea at the time,
yeah,
and then when
yeah,
you do them, you think, why did I do that?
yeah, yeah. Although I am at least delighted that, unlike last time, I don't have a steaming cold, so I won't
Last time
embarrass you.
you were fairly phlegmy last time, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah. I was in that state where, like if you say nothing and do nothing, you're okay. But if you start talking, it gets bad quickly. And, being on stream, uh, you're a
The
little bit stuck.
opposite of being on stream, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Like, what I wanted was a nice solid day of editing and not trying to talk with anyone. So hello to all the people watching. Someone just mentioned my video on the Queen's Range Rover, which a lot of people watched. I actually had an email about that today where someone said, what proof have you got that it was actually, a Royal Range Rover? And I just had to respond with like, beyond the photo of it 5 yards behind the Queen, like, I mean,
Beyond
with the
the
same number
photographic
plate, like,
evidence,
yeah, beyond. I mean, other than the specification, the original owner, the color combination, and the photo of it 5 yards behind the Queen. I mean, really, there's nothing to link it
yeah,
to at all.
it's yeah. I mean, but that could be a Photoshop number plate.
Yeah, it could be anybody,
Someone might have
anybody's.
photoshopped it because they knew that in the future a YouTuber would do a feature on that Range Rover and try and pass it off as that actual Range
Yeah,
Rover, and they think that we can't have that.
right.
Yeah,
Oh,
or it might just be the actual one.
oh, all right.
Maybe.
Oh,
Where do you get
oh,
your
some
shirt?
Somebody else, yeah, okay. The shirts tend to come from two places. The wackier ones come from a company called Claudio Lugli, who are an Italian company actually based out of London, of all things. And recently, I've been getting a few from Gant. So this is from Gant. I call this the ice cream chic. It's that, or it's a barber shop, isn't it? That's what it
It's
is.
a little bit like that
Uh,
twirly thing that goes round
Yeah,
outside.
yeah,
All
your
yeah,
barber
yeah,
pole, the old
yes.
bloody rag, isn't it?
So are the
Yeah,
shirts actually like part of the YouTube get-up, or is that you?
both. They're both.
The-
I always wore wacky shirts when I was a teenager. I would buy like the, classic horrendous shirts with some sort of yellow samurai or something on them from the market stall in town. And the short version of how it started on YouTube was I was doing a video of NMX5 at Christmas, and I wore a Primark Christmas jumper with a little knitted snowman with a carrot and scarf and thing on it, and like half the comments were about the ruddy jumper and not the car. And
Which
I
you put
thought,
so
hey,
much effort into researching and
yeah,
presenting to people, and all they're bothered about is you feel like a woman, don't you? Like they want like a piece of meat.
I'm saying nothing. Yeah.
Eyes are
So
up here. This is what I'm saying. I'm not here
yeah,
for your objectification.
yeah. So well, in the early days, I just sort of thought, if you're going to objectify me, at least objectify me in the tens of thousands, would be fine. And I thought, what, this could be a thing. People talk about the clothes you wear, and I love my Hawaiian shirts anyway. But obviously, it being Christmas, I was like, I'm not going to get away with Christmas jumpers for very long. So then the shirts became a thing. And Grumpy Talk has noticed the fact that I have come live from the set of a J.J. Abrams film. I've got my regular lighting setup going on, but it's not, it's more
You've still got
dramatic.
you've still got your mad computer on the wall there.
Yeah.
If my kids ever see like a gaming PC and they go, "Oh, I'm really jealous. So and so's got a gaming PC," I'm like, "No, look on the wall of that. That's a gaming PC."
Yeah.
that,
The crazy
that's
thing
a
is, it's not even built for gaming. I mean, it
no,
happens to be
no.
good at
It's
gaming,
built
but
for more strenuous stuff than that, I expect.
yeah, yeah. Videos. Right, I'm just going to try and get you. Yeah, there we go.
Apparently, they have some deck chairs in Blackpool, just like that shirt.
I can believe it. I can believe it. And if ever you see there's a big hole in some of the deck chairs, it's probably because I had to patch the shirt.
It's a shirt shape taken out of it.
I
You
always
have to go
remember
and sit on them and
my
see if you're camouflaged.
yeah, I always remember my mum telling me like back in like the 80s or 90s or something, she went out with some friends for a curry, and somebody remarked upon the fact that you can tell that you're in an Indian restaurant because of the decor, which back in the 90s they weren't the modern chic affairs that they are now.
Yeah.
And they're like, there's the carpet, there's the curtains, that's what they're all like. And she was just like, they're the curtains that we've got at home. So she just came home, took the curtains down straight away. I was like,
well, either that or open an Indian restaurant at home.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think I might have those curtains in the house.
You turn them into a shirt.
Yeah, they've gone straight through the awkward and old, and I think now they're just vintage. In fact, I think when I'm done with the curtains, I'm going to sell them to Steph.
I was going to say they sound like they've got Steph's name all over them.
Yeah, they do. They do. I'm going to be on a big telly. Hello, Steph, if you're watching from the big telly.
Yeah, but Steph's must have a vintage telly, so it'll probably be like 22 inches or something like that.
Now, just sort of got an image of her, sort of adjusting the antenna on the top, giving it the odd
I've nearly got it.
Yeah, the colour's probably wasted on it.
Used to have a Mitsubishi telly.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I had a Mitsubishi computer.
She had a Mitsubishi telly, and it had like slider controls for the channels. And then we had a telly at home. We had a Panasonic, still wooden and everything like that, and it had a silver remote, which was about that tall and about that wide, quite flat, and it used to go into a slot in the telly, like a letterbox. You used to push it in and then click, click, and it was in there.
My first telly didn't have a clicker. You had to. It was exercise to change the channel.
Yeah, my nan's Mitsubishi. I remember when I was a kid, I was like, "Where's the remote? Hasn't got one." What? Yeah, you had to get up and change the channel.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so people have asked about the tomato, although I'm not entirely sure much has changed with it since last year, because I think somebody else has had me back and they've taken up my ramp.
What's his name? Jack asked about it before.
Oh, did
he? Yeah. I think the problem he's got, I suppose, from his point of view, is that I end up doing tons and tons of work on it. It looks like he sold you a pup, doesn't it?
Yeah, but he asked me the other day, he's like, so how much you spent on it? 50, 60 quid? 70 quid? I was like, no, Jack.
No, way more than that.
Yeah. And he's like, really?
But I did say to him that in fairness, you could have gone and bought one for twice as much money to start with and still had to do all that. And like some of the things are just unlucky, like trying to get that downpipe off because the fixings that have been put in it. It's just one of those things. It does happen on old cars, and at the end of the day, I know what you're trying to I know what you're trying to achieve with it. Because to be completely honest, I'm not trying to blow smoke up my own ass, but my 16 valve, my red one, is probably the best one I've driven.
Yeah.
And so I know what they're supposed to be like. So that's my frame of reference. And any one I ever drive after that, I can tell this one feels like it's up on its tiptoes. This one's too soft. This one's slow.
It's a constant issue for me that when I'm driving older cars, particularly stuff that's like 30, 40 years old or whatever, or I had it the other day, I drove an Alfa 166, which is a 20-year-old car now, and you report on the car as it is.
Yeah.
But then people will hop in the comment section and go, no, you must have driven a bad one. It doesn't sound like that. No, they're not like that.
Would these comments be on piston heads, perchance?
No, he's on the channel. And sometimes the people are right. Sometimes you're like, no, actually, I have driven a pup. Sometimes I've then gone and driven another one later and be like, actually, no, they are much better than that. But other times, it's just people's memory is, it's just gone. The two examples that always spring to mind are a Ford Capri of any description, because if you listen to Capri owners, one of them would keep up with any Ferrari of the current day, let alone its day. And when I did the Renault 5 GT Turbo,
okay,
which is like 130 horsepower, something like that, and 900 odd kilos. So it's by modern standards, it'd be considered like a mild hatch. It's like Kia Picanto pace.
Yeah.
Which for its day, I'm sure it was brisk, and I'm sure if you got out of something that had 40 horsepower into something that had close to 140 horsepower, it will feel like a rocket ship. But basically, the owners seem to think that even in the current day and age, they're still the scourge of the back roads, and that they are the hottest thing in town, and Golf R owners need beware. But it's oh yeah, it's tough. Someone mentioned Channel 4 as well. I remember having the man turn up to put Channel 5 on the telly. He knocked on the door. He's like, "Hello, would you like Channel 5?"
Did he have it in a coat like that? This is
probably Channel 5. It does. I actually bought weird random fun childhood memories. Is the local video shop was quite enterprising, and they used to have a bloke turn up with like the Tesco's delivery, like blue plastic boxes.
Yeah.
He would turn up with one of those on like Friday night and be like, "Do you want to rent a video?" and we'll come and get it on Sunday. And we rented the copy of Independence Day that they had so many times. In the end, they just sold it to us. And I remember it really
so worn out.
It came in a blue plastic thing, and unfortunately, like probably about 15 years ago, we moved house. All my VHSs I got rid of, and I probably should have kept them because they're probably worth a fortune. We bought the Independence Day, but I distinctly remember we bought it, and we're in the kitchen having dinner. Mum was like, "Oh, what film have you rented?" To my dad, and he's like, "Oh, it's Independence Day." "Oh, what's that about?" And he's like, "Oh, it's about aliens come to Earth and Will Smith has to fight them off." And she's like, "Yeah, no, it's not." I think it was called Independence Day. She thought it was some sort of like hard-hitting political thriller, or something. She thought it was Amistad. It's like no, there are aliens. There really are. Anyway, so yeah.
And she's like, "It sounds a bit rubbish." And like, no, it's really good.
I
think.
Yeah, no. VHS tapes are valuable. For those in the comments, we are reading them, but they're kind of difficult to read because they
they're hard.
They sort of fly past.
They're
Well, you got a good number of people. 165 people watching. Yeah, nearly 300 with Steph.
Does that mean that Steph is twice as popular as you?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
I'm easy. It's the 21st century. It's okay. I know
I'm
on late. I'll place it on the sort of graveyard shift that I volunteered myself.
I thought 10 p.m. was like a prime time slot.
I don't know anymore. 5-2. That's pretty epic. Anymore. So your fundraising has now surpassed a Lamborghini V10. There you go. You got to get past the Dodge Viper because that's where you get last time.
Oh, I've got to take the Cerebra down. I don't like taking the Cerebras. Look amazing. I don't want to.
I always want a Cerebra.
They're just. I don't want one. But I really, 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 really want one.
You know what Cerebra is? The Cerebra is the ultimate neighbour's car. I want my neighbour to have a Cerebra because I want to look at it, I want to listen to it, and every now and again, I want to drive it.
You must have a nice neighbour.
No, he doesn't have a Cerebra.
No,
but I want my neighbour. That's what I mean. There are some cars where you're like, I want to be near it, I want to listen to it, I want to look at it, and sometimes I want to drive it, but I don't want the commitment.
Yeah.
I want a mistress of the car. That's what it is.
They're one of my favourite cars. They're not.
They drive.
They're not. I'm probably over-egging it. They're not as bad as that, but it's just every issue you get with a Cerebra is a head scratcher. Like it's never simple, but you have to go. It's not like it's a bad surprise. Like it just needs a so and so, and then you go to do it. What? It's like that every job on it. You get into owning one knowing that if it needs anything doing, it's probably going to be a pig. But they're wonderful cars. They really are. They're just like.
But every time I drive like a TVR, it'll be a great experience. But there'll also be that moment where the owner says, "Right, okay, don't touch that. We don't know what it does, but we touched it once and everything broke. So don't touch it. Don't look at it funny. Like,
Yeah,
don't drive the car on a Wednesday. Doesn't like Wednesdays.
that's
You know,
that is quite. I mean, the server is the first of the. Don't get me wrong. I think as TVRs went on, they got more and more like that.
I tell you what I saw the other day. My local Waitrose car park is pretty good. Someone watching, I know, did spot me in the Waitrose car park. So hello to you. The local Waitrose car park is always top for a bit of spottery. And a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two, I saw a wavy dash Tuscan.
What
Yeah.
a Tuscan 2.
Yeah. In fact, I think could be getting this wrong. I think it might have been a convertible.
Yeah, no, it could be. Yeah, the Tuscan convertible effectively replaced the Tamora.
Yeah.
So it's like the lineage of the Griffith.
I drove
yeah, it could work. Because the funny thing with the Tuscan 2, well, technically the Tuscan 2 is the one that came out in 1999, but the last version of it, yeah, you said it had the wavy dash. There was the other one that had the weird pods dash, and they changed the dash on this car that had been out for a year. Why?
It's TVR. Chops Garage wants to know what the easiest TVR to own is. I mean, that's I wanted an answer. I think it's probably got to be a Chimera or a Griffith, hasn't it? Surely. Yeah. I like the Chimera. Everyone seems to go for the Griffith. I've never understood why there's such a big difference between the two, but I like the look of the Chimera. That's just me.
The looks are a purely subjective thing. Mechanically, they are pretty much the well.
Yeah.
In here, it will tell you they're pretty much the same.
Yeah, the Griff was supposed to be slightly sportier, wasn't it? I mean, like, I think you tend to have an easier time finding the Griff in 5 litre.
I'm sure everyone knows, but the Chimera is the red one and the Griffith's the silver one.
Yeah.
So the Griffith was kind of more retro looking, more of a concept car, not really a concept. The TVR don't really do concept cars, but they basically made a prototype of it, put it at a motor show at a time when they were still making the Wedge technically, and the S, and they had this Griffith prototype at Earl's Court, and people come up and said how much. They were like, well, no, it's just a prototype concept. No, I want to buy one. How much? And it just, the demand for it just went mental because it's just got it's got no bumpers, it had no door handles, it was kind of like classically styled, but weirdly retro, modern. It was a bit of an odd one, and the Chimera was probably a bit more traditional looking. It was probably like they tried to make it more muscular, I think, in a way. Like the Griff is very smooth, very simple. And the Chimera's got more curves and bulges and boulders, but it's got a bigger boot. I mean, it's basically they're the same car, but TVR thought, well, it's a story of what they did. Everything Peter Wheeler did actually from the Griffith onwards, they would get more than one car out of a chassis.
I mean, basically, if you've got half a dozen school chairs and a welder, you can build a TVR.
They're better than that. What they achieved in the factory, I think they're massively underrated, because when you look at the actual facilities they had and the resources they had, and
I love it.
Everything on those cars.
Someone's asked if I've
coming from the back of someone's head. You know, everything was like the design of those cars. Like people compare the look of a TVR to, you know, modern pretty sports car. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but modern pretty sports car. Every TVR started as a lump of clay, and it was the guy who owned the company was involved in styling them. The dog wasn't on the Chimera. I'll tell you a story about the car. I can tell you this one, right? This is a true story, and it's come from one of the people who used to work at TVR. So the dog story on the Chimera Buck is a complete lie. It was just like Peter Wheeler was a master of marketing. He could just say something and people would be like, write that down. And it's free advertising. It's like, it's a stupid story. It's going to get traction. But one of the things they did do is, and if the guy who did this is watching, he's going to be so upset. So I'm sorry in advance. So this is TVR owners can be a bit weird. So there was Peter Wheeler's dog, Ned. There is out there someone who has a glass fibre turd from Peter Wheeler's dog mounted on a plinth. So they bought a piece of dog shit and had it resined and mounted on a plinth because it's Peter Wheeler's dog's turd. Now, you think that's bad. The sad thing is it isn't Ned's dog at all. It was just a piece of dog shit they found on the floor. So they paid like 300 quid for this thing. And it's just
for someone's encrusted dog's egg.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So someone in the comments asked if I'd driven a TVR. Yes, I've had the pleasure of driving many TVRs. Regrettably, not anything older than Chimera or Griff. So I've done Chimera, I've done Griff, I've done Tuscan, Tamora, T350, which is often forgotten. I've done the Cigaris and various Cerbras. I would love to drive. I mean, I think the one that I think a lot of people remember is I'd love to do the SEAC.
Okay.
Yeah, the 450.
You've got to drive a Kevlar one because not all of them had the Kevlar weave in.
Yeah, I got to do a wedge. Sid is right. You know, I don't like the look of them at all. They don't do anything for me. But I would like to go. And every single TVR, you look at it, and you're like, the ingredients list here is not fantastic. Like, this is not inspiring me.
What are you talking about? A Tuscan's got a Citroen Saxo power steering pump.
Yeah. You know, but to drive, they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant.
They're not brilliant if you want to go from A to B quickly. And well, you can go quickly, but go A to B quickly without sweating.
Yeah. I mean, I love the fact also that, you know, especially like a Chimera or something, and I will have one day. It's just stuff keeps getting in the way.
Like BXs.
Yeah. I love the fact that, and I got the report on my MGZR today, so that's also going to get in the way of having a Chimera. Just fixing the welding on the MG is more than the sum total of everything I've spent on the Tomato thus far. It's that good. The Chimera, because also actually, you know, the one you'd always want is the 5 litre. Like, you always want the 5 litre. None of them are quick. Like, none of them.
I mean, the 4 litre, the 4 litre would struggle with any hot hatch of today.
Oh, yeah.
The 5 litre, I think the 5 litre, a good 5 litre, the initial, like, when you shove your foot down and you just get that slingshot where it's just, there's no lag at all. It's just gone.
Yeah.
For that little burst, I think it's probably still quite quick, but over a distance, cars are so much faster today than they were in the 90s, aren't they? You know, and in the real world,
it's just, you know, and also it just makes the best noise. Like, it's just a delight, and you get the wind in your hair and everything. And you're out and about, and you're like, it's nice, and the gearbox is lovely.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. I mean, like,
there's a unique feel to TVR. Not all of them. From the Griffith onwards, there's just this. I can't describe it. I tried to write it down in the book, and I ballsed it up. I
never expected them to be the driver's car that they are. I never expected that.
No, I suppose so. I mean, they're a lot more accomplished than you would believe, but it's just this sense of drama. That's the main thing. It's just this sense of occasion. You sit in this driving position, you've got this transmission tunnel, which is just like a big round hump. It's like a hippo's laid down next to you, but have a rest. And you gear lever, a little stubby gear lever on the top of it, and it's a proper clunk, 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 like that. But it's not.
Someone's mentioned a Marcos. That's a brand I've not yet experienced. I sat in I want to call it modern, but you know, a late 90s Marcos. Like, I think one of the latest.
Marcos Mantis was one of my dream cars. I love the look of those. Not the 70s one, the 90s one that you're probably talking about.
What is that poster of a piece of, like, it looks like AV equipment just above your head?
What, that?
Yeah.
That's the Speedo from my BX.
Oh, I thought it was. I was trying to work it out because I've got lots of, like, people's, you know, comments and stuff getting in the way. but I could not work out what exactly it was. Oh, okay.
The speedo there is the rotating drum, like Ian has in his CSA, but the rev counter underneath it is a VFD strip.
Of course it is.
Yeah, it's not even LCD or anything. It's VFD. It's massively overcomplicated for what it is.
Chop's Garage has a 6.6 litre Firebird, and he's disappointed with the performance. I think the problem with the 6.6 litre Firebird, not knowing American cars all that well, is I seem to recall they come from that era where the emissions regs came in, and they also had to change how they measure the power, so they had to be honest about it for once. And in the space of like 5 years, I remember them going from like making 400 odd horsepower to like 180.
There is actually, though, there was I'm not going to name him just in case, but there was a poster on Piston Heads years and years and years ago, when back in the days where I used to go in general gassing, and he used to say like largely controversial things, and people thought he was just on the wind up. And one of the things he said was that people were slagging off American cars having no power, like 5 litre engine. Oh, it makes 200 horsepower. And he's saying, that's not the point. That's not the point. And he was trying to explain it. And it wasn't until I got a rolling road and started putting cars on it, I looked at the figures and I thought, oh my God, he's right. He's right. And because the horsepower figure that engines produce is the peak figure. So the graph can go along like that, and then it can just go like that, and then that's it, and then end. So for this portion here, it's gutless, and it's just got this little bit at the end, and that's just a peak. Whereas you can get these American cars that only make 200 horsepower, but they start back here, and they just go across a real broad curve.
Yeah.
So across the across the sort of the width of the curve, you're actually getting more out of them. I mean, the main reason they did it, like you say, emissions, and also they're all in a real low state of tune, aren't they? To sort of durability. And I always
run them on
I was
moonshine,
trying to figure that one out, and I looked at the dyno graphs, just like, he's right. He's right. Its peak figure is not really indicative of like.
Well, I always quote to people when they talk about peak horsepower figures and this, that, and the other. I had the luxury of spending quite a bit of time with the team behind the McLaren MP44 and a lot of McLaren Formula One cars of the 80s. And
I still haven't watched that video because that video is even longer than mine. And
they are. They're quite long.
I want to do the whole thing in one go. I don't want to like go into
do
it.
the two long ones. Do the 2 long ones, but it is 5 hours of your life, I'm afraid. No refunds. But one of the things the guy said to me, he said when they had the old Porsche Tag Turbo engines, Porsche would build this engine and they would, give them the engine and they would go, look, it's amazing. Look at this. Look at this dyno graph. Look how much power and everything it makes. And they go, yeah, that's all well and lovely, but we're not racing on the dyno. We're on real tracks, and also, our drivers aren't at full throttle much of the time.
Yeah.
So it's about response, it's about drivability, it's about a whole bunch of other factors. And so I thought, you know what? If Ayrton Senna didn't spend a lot of time at full throttle, and if the guy who built his car wasn't that, fussed about the power that it made, more about how friendly it was, how accessible it was, how approachable it was, how usable and deployable the power was. Like, I don't care what Ken got out of his car if he's going down to Santa Pod. I just don't. It doesn't. I've spent all week with a car that's got 830 horsepower, right? And I am reasonably confident, because I'm not in prison, that I didn't use all of it. I mean, it's lovely to know that it's there. It's wonderful and fun. People go, how much power is it going to get? 830 horsepower. What? Yeah. But otherwise, you're like, it is just, measuring tape time. That's what it is.
Yeah. You're sat in traffic thinking, well, I've got 850 horsepower.
Yeah.
I
did wind someone up, though, because they wanted to hear the engine. And it's a hybrid, so I pressed the electric mode and set off silently.
I know, I agree. I think it's I think there's a lot more to mean that, because there's a channel I watch on here. One of my favourite ones is one called Driving for Answers, it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And he's I always forget what country he comes from. Hungary or something like that. He's really clever, and he has a really good understanding of engines and mechanics and everything like that. But he explains things. It's like a talking head thing. So he has like what's going on, and then him explaining it in the corner. And he was explaining about the Big Bang motorbike engines.
Yes, yeah, I remember when they came out. Yeah,
yeah, and I was just like, oh, okay. And I wasn't really familiar with that, and I was because like Yamaha were making a V8, an inline four with a cross plane crank.
Yeah,
it was like half a traditional V8.
And you could hear it when it went past.
Yeah.
When you're at the races, you knew which one had the Big Bang engine because it sounded completely different to the others going by.
Yeah, and he basically said similar sort of things to what you said then. He's like, people were asking, why would you do that? Is it more powerful? No. Is it smoother? No, it's rougher. Oh,
yeah.
Is it more reliable? No, not really. Is it more frugal? No. Why would you do it then? It's worse. It is, except it's got uneven firing intervals.
Yep.
Which means that when you come out of corners, you don't have to be quite as sensitive with the throttle. You can be a bit more lax with it, which means it's easier to modulate the power coming out of corners. And the problem with the super bikes is that if you go like that, you either lift the wheel off the ground or you spin the back wheel up when you're in a corner, which is not ideal.
And I remember years ago, some of the manufacturers, but I mean, probably about 10, 15 years ago now, they actually started bringing out bikes that were less stiff than the ones before. I can't imagine the car world doing this. Like this year's chassis, 10% less stiff than last year.
Everyone goes on about stiffness, and you think, on the roads are terrible. Surely a bit of compliance is a good thing.
Well, it's torsional rigidity, like chassis rigidity rather than suspension.
But, that's what I mean. I mean, like,
well, the idea
is too much.
Having spoken to Lotus about it, I talked to Lotus about it a while ago, and I said to them, with this quest for rigidity and manufacturers quoting rigidity figures for chassis and stuff like that, is there like a benefit to it? And they basically said to me, and bearing in mind this is Lotus, so I think in terms of ride and handling, we can agree that they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I think they probably they know what they're talking about.
They said to me, look, there is an improvement to be had up to a certain point. But when you get to that point, beyond that, the real benefits that you're making are actually in like NVH, because a stiffer chassis isn't going to flex, so stuff inside doesn't creak.
Okay,
But it kind of gets to that point. So, but yeah, like with the bikes, like I remember they worked out, yonks ago again, why the Ducati frame worked quite so well, because it being the trellis, it's triangulated, so alongside the sort of the length of the bike, the spine of the bike, it's really, really stiff, but side to side it wasn't. So it would flex a little bit. One of your guys has mentioned it there, they realized you want stiffness in some ways, not other ways, because if you actually let the rear wheel move a little bit, it'll find its own grip. And the Big Bang thing was all very much along the same theory.
You get a little bit of you get a bit of warning before it's going to lose grip, sort of thing. A bit of compliance.
It's very,
obviously I like cars with superior suspension anyway, so I don't really have this issue. I know the McLarens as well, don't they? They use an interconnected suspension setup, don't they? They use
yes. So the Super Series cars, as they call it, the 12C, 650, that sort of thing, 720 and so on. Yeah, they have. It's like cross-linked, I think, hydraulically interconnected dampers that they say they don't have an anti-roll bar, but I've spoken to a few people and they're like, you see that is basically an anti-roll bar, but it doesn't do quite as much as it maybe.
They call it a horizontal stabilizer device.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, the idea is, I guess that's the idea is when you're, in a straight line, each corner of the car doing its own thing is not a problem at all. But when you're in a bend, no, that is very much a problem. And they're it does work, to be fair. The McLaren suspension is pretty good.
They ride well, apparently.
Oh, your secretary is messaging, I believe.
Oh,
He wants to
can
confirm
I
Pollitt
just
timings.
interrupt to confirm Pollitt timings? Well, Chris Pollitt offered to do 3 or 4 in the morning.
Oh,
so he is very welcome on either. 4 a.m. Yeah, it can be 4.
yeah, you know,
I do try to look at it, chat, but the chat just goes like that, and I can't.
Yeah, the chat for us, it goes up and up and up, and then it fades away as well. So when you want it there,
I've taken that one off the screen completely because otherwise I can't see what I'm doing.
Have you got a separate one down there?
Yeah, I've got a laptop down here as well with the.
Oh, that's cheating.
There we go. So Chris Pollitt is on at 4 o'clock in the morning. The madman. Wow. I think one of the cars I'd quite like to see you do is a Xantia Activa.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. I saw a Xantia in the wild the other day. Yeah.
Well, I have a Xantia. I don't know my own. I have a customer Xantia Activa here at the moment, and when it's fixed, because it came in for a check over, and it turns out it's got the wrong spears on it. It's got a coolant leak. It's got an exhaust leak. The strut tops are about to go through the bonnet. Other than that, it's fine. It's actually a nice car. It's a real early one and the best color as well, Dante red. And yeah, when I've got it actually tickety boo and working properly and everything, you should have a go in that because they're just bizarre.
Who was the mystery guest at 8 o'clock? By the way, I was otherwise engaged, so I didn't spot that.
I can't pronounce his surname. It was Misha Trauruden.
Oh yeah, formerly Boosted Boris. Yeah.
Yes,
that's very cool. That's nice of him.
It was, yeah. It was good of him to come on. You could tell he was tired. I think he's had a long day driving around the Nürburgring. Yeah, he was on. Got some good people on. We got a quiz next.
I do like a quiz. The Passenger Seat podcast.
Yeah, it's a TV car. So last year it was a serial killer car quiz, which I did really well at. Which I don't know why. This time it's a TV car quiz. One of the answers will be Ford Fairmont.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
One of the answers might be BX.
No, that's too obvious.
No,
what cars had a BX in it? Prime Suspect.
Yeah.
Helen Mirren drove H19 CBX. It was a GTI 4x4.
There you go.
And there was a film in France called L'Operation Corned Beef, which had Jean Reno.
Yeah.
And he basically gets this guy's BX. It's his brand new car. And I can't remember what it's about because it's in French and they're all just shouting all the time. But he just gets trashed. He just drives it through farms and all sorts. There was Longest Yard. We'll have an SM.
Yeah.
I am going to recreate that scene when I get mine on the road. I'm not going to push it into the Solent, but I'm going to.
See, I did a video on the Esprit the other day, and the Esprit is great because when you talk to people, like non-car people, and you go like, oh, you know, a Lotus Esprit, and they go, oh, what? Like the one James Bond have? And then you have to get really geeky and go, hang on a minute. The one in your head, did it go underwater? They go, yeah, right, no, not that one. Yeah, oh, did it have skis in it? Yeah, that one. Oh, okay, all right, that one. Then you go, oh, didn't Richard Gere have one of those in Pretty Woman? Well, yes, he did, but it wasn't the same Esprit as his later Esprit, you know. And you're
explaining the differences between the Series 1 and Series 2 Esprit.
Yeah, could you maybe, if you're geeking out with TV cars and film cars, could you perhaps get me, because I've got, you know, examples of the Series 1 Esprit, the Turbo Esprit, the Esprit Turbo, the Stevens car, but I can't think off the top of my head of any media where the last of line, the Thompson redesigned car,
like the V8?
Yeah, the V8's in that shape, you know, the last of the really
sort of
curvy. They look good. They do look good. But, you know, when dealerships have them and they go, you don't want to buy that car. You know.
Is that generally a bad sign?
Actually, so other obscure cars, there is at least one Lotus, maybe two, in the live action Ghost in the Shell movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they
I don't know
tarted
what
up
that is.
and well, you heard of Ghost in the Shell, the anime? Okay. It's a very famous anime from the 90s, regarded as one of like the greatest of all time. They did a live action remake of it a few years ago with Scarlett Johansson in it, and it's got
I
a
should watch
really
that.
really nice, it's got a really really cool aesthetic about it. You'd probably actually enjoy it quite a bit if you don't know the anime, because people that know the anime got a bit upset with it for various reasons. Common with adaptations. Hooked on Classics, yes, I do watch Soup. He's an amazing channel, incredible production. But yeah, they got like an XL, which is a car that I'm quite fascinated by and love. And they they tarted it up and made it look a little bit, like not steampunky, but
Yeah.
kind of like a little bit different.
Okay. So here's a question about the Lotus XL.
Yeah.
Because this is something I've long wondered.
Mhm.
Every time I look inside a Lotus XL, and that's not very often,
Yeah.
but when I do, I notice that the dashboard looks like a Mark II Cavalier dashboard. But then there are lots of little things that aren't. But I'll keep looking at it going, but the shape of it, it just looks like it's come out of a Mark II Cavalier. So
to my knowledge, it isn't from a Mark II Cavalier, which is not to say that it's not, but to my knowledge, it's not.
Yeah.
However, the center, stack with your heater controls and whatnot, that is from a Toyota. That era, they were working with Toyota quite closely, and I believe it's the second generation, like the Celica Supra, if you remember that one.
Like the 2.8.
Yeah. The XL shares, off the top of my head, steering column, I think door handles, and they've got like the only bad door handles Toyota ever made. Very Lotusy. And they've got because you can tell it's the old Toyota steering column where you have to press a button to get the key out, which is really annoying.
We had a Jeep like that.
Yeah. HVAC type thing, that's all Toyota. The gearbox is Toyota. I believe like the whole rear axle is basically Toyota. So yeah. Oh, someone just mentioned an Avon Time. I am always thinking about buying an Avon Time.
So someone said Ready Player One has a C6 in it.
Yeah, and an Avon Time. That's where I saw it mentioned.
But
I did a C6, and as you probably know, and I loved it. And the most hilarious thing about that is not too long before, I had managed to organize like the holy trinity of like, for me, like, iconic JDM cars. I got the R32, 33, and 34 Skyline GTRs together on the same day, so I could drive them back to back, which before and since I've rarely put that much effort into organizing stuff, because it was every bit as difficult as you might imagine it to be. However, it came together, and that way I could sort of talk about the differences, like, because let's face it, when you drive a car, 6 months later you drive a different one, people go, oh, how do they compare? You're like, oh,
I can't remember.
This is like a glaring difference, So I got to drive them back to back, and one of their mates was like, oh, this is that was really cool. I wish I'd got my car on the channel. Now, what is it? It's a C6. And so, they mentioned it to me, and I said, yeah, I'll do the C6. Of course I'll do the C6. C6s are cool. Or more accurately, they're weird, which to me is basically the same thing. And I did the C6, and the C6 got far more views than any of the Skylines did.
Yeah, my C6 video, the first one I did, was my best video, like in terms of numbers. I don't look at the numbers as much as I should, admittedly, but up until I did the Picasso on the Rolling Road, and that's just that went. But there's a lot of love for the C6. I think it's because the C6 is one of those cars that people go, I don't want to bloody own one, but I'll watch you own one. Neighbour's car.
Yeah, it is.
I love it. I love it. It just feels so special. It just like, it doesn't. If it's clean and they've got some of the scratches out of it and things like that, you could pull up anywhere in it. It's worth a few £100, mine, and you could go anywhere in it. And you could go to a posh golf club. You could go to Lidl. You could go to wherever.
Like, I've got some, I've got some favourite roads of mine up in Scotland. And there's a lot of cars I would rather drive around those roads than a C6. But for a car to get me there, like there's not really there's not many better ways of doing it than
we took it to France last year, well, and this year, but last year. And yeah, when you've got the cruise control on, it's just like being in a train. The scenery just going. And you know, the faster you go, the better the suspension gets.
So Richard in the comments section has asked me a question, which is, would I ever own a Caterham or another 7? He says, I didn't fit in the narrow body cars. I did fit in the narrow body car. I will have you know, narrow body with a bucket seat in it as well.
Yeah.
Probably not. I might own, a 7 style car, but the issue with the Caterhams is that there's two things. First off, I've had 4 Caterham press cars. At the end of each one, I've been very handy to hand that key back. Very, very happy to give it back and be like, thank you very much. It was lovely. Please take it away. The other thing is that even the sort of more basic ones, by the time you've, ticked some optional extras, like, for example, it not arriving in boxes, you're talking about 40 grand.
They're big money or more. Now.
And this is a car with no doors, no lockable boot, not really much protection from the weather, no aircon, that sort of stuff. And you're like, it's in this country, that is like, I described the Caterhams to my friends as the best 5th car you'll ever own. And to me, it is like a 4-wheeled motorbike. Because you are going to take it out on those days where you basically aren't going to go very far from it. You're not going to leave it, and you've got to be certain it isn't going to chuck it down. And in Britain, days like that,
you're far between. I mean, the thing also, I was going to say, I've driven a lot of 7s. Like we don't do so much now, but I've had so many in over the years, and for my money, I think a Westfield's just as good.
Not done a Westfield. Not done one of those. The other problem for me is, of course, is that any car I drive, I'm going to use it for work, which means it's got to have the space to put my camera kit in it.
No. To own and be absolutely hopeless.
Yeah.
I drive them down the road and get bored of getting hit around the side of the head with the wind.
Yeah. It's just, they're hilarious cars and they're fun to drive and everything. If I was going to spend a silly amount of money on a car like that, it probably would be an Ariel instead. They're just a bit wilder and a bit more interesting. But all of the, I'm lucky. I get to toy around with these things and have a bit of fun, and then hand it back and go, someone said they heard the 160 Caterham with 660cc K-car engine is the most fun. No, it's not. It's horrible.
Is it? Oh no, I really like the look of that.
Horrible, hateful, miserable experience.
That's all 80 horsepower. The one that's got like the Steelies on it.
Yeah. That
don't ruin that for me. I really like the look of that.
Ancient suspension. That engine is designed for pottering about Tokyo in rush hour. And it just
on the road. An odd engine to put in it, actually.
On the road, it just feels stressed all the time. Like it's just like it feels like an engine that's had 50 coffees at all points in time. And it just doesn't. Just get it with a proper engine, because also for me, like a lightweight car shouldn't have a turbo. No. A supercharged, fine. Not turbo defeats the whole point. You don't need torque, but the 660 doesn't have torque anyway, but it does have turbo lag. So, and it's also one of the few cars I thought I was really in for it. Put my foot down really gently in the wet, just because I didn't want to get hit up the backside by the cars behind me who were getting bored. And it went properly sideways. It was not fun.
Did you film it?
No, I was just driving it home from Caterham.
Oh, I was looking for that video. Watch JayEmm nearly die.
Nope. You know, it was yeah, cool. So you've got your TV car quiz next.
Oh yeah, it's time for the TV car quiz. Nearly.
It's time. It's time. I don't want to be late. I don't want to be the reason for you being late.
I'm glad you're on the ball because I was too busy reading someone say that about a Mondeo ST220, and I thought, well, that will be a good car to take around school.
Yeah, interesting cars, but to me, just they drive the wrong wheels. I don't know. I'm weird. I just buy 3 Series.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I want to do the NC 500, or perhaps some of the not as mainstream roads that locals say are actually better. I think
I know the roads you want to do. You want to do half the NC 500, and then there's much other better bits you can do.
Yeah, I think the Chimera is the car that's got to go.
No, perfect. That's the car. That's the car.
I think that's the one I'll be taking. Well, look, mate, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Good luck with it. I hope to wake up in the morning and see you're at the 10 grand mark. So thanks everyone who's donated.
If there's no one here like that, I might have fallen asleep on the chair next to me. But
all right,
if we get to
Ian
10,
to come and give you a prod.
If we get to 10, then I've got a special picture to put up.
Oh, all right. Well, bye to everybody, and bye to you, Rich. And I'll give you a day off before you get back on the tomato for your charitable work.
Well, give me the morning on Sunday, but back in on the afternoon. Let's get
yeah. Look, I'm a reasonable chap like Mr. Scrooge. So you can have the morning off. That's fine. And then back on it.
But make sure you have your lunch in the morning. Don't have your lunch at 12. So
yeah, exactly. Working lunch. All right, chat.
Thanks, mate. Cheers for that.
Bye.
I'll see everyone next in the quiz.